As long as Russian President Vladimir Putin is alive, there will be no peace agreements.
Russia launched a large-scale attack on Ukraine, just hours after the United States seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker, dramatically escalating tensions between the two nations and fueling global concern. Power supplies across two regions in southeastern Ukraine were completely knocked out on January 7th, leaving thousands of homes and businesses without electricity amid freezing winter conditions. Hospitals and other critical sites in the worst-hit areas had to switch to reserve power systems, according to reports by Reuters, in order to continue essential operations and save lives. Emergency response teams worked tirelessly through the night, struggling to restore electricity and water connections as rapidly as possible, Reuters further reported. Ukraine's energy ministry released a statement saying, quote, "As a result of the attack, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions are almost completely without electricity. Critical infrastructure is operating on reserve power," unquote. Ukraine's prime minister cautioned that heavy snowfall and plummeting temperatures expected in the coming days were likely to worsen the ongoing disruptions and make recovery even harder. Ukraine's prime minister said, quote, "Ukraine's energy system is under enemy attacks every day, and energy workers are operating in extremely difficult conditions to provide people with light and heat. Deteriorating weather conditions put additional strain on critical infrastructure," unquote. Ukrainian Railways announced that its trains and critical signaling systems were being moved onto backup energy lines, ensuring continued transportation and safety amid widespread outages. Zaporizhzhia's regional governor revealed that the power outages had disabled air raid sirens, leaving residents more vulnerable as alarms could no longer warn of incoming missile attacks. In the city of Dnipro, a powerful explosion struck one of the main power plants, causing significant damage and triggering widespread blackouts across much of the urban area. Nearly the entire city of Dnipro appeared to be shrouded in darkness, as confirmed by the Kiev Independent, which described a near-total loss of electricity.
I lost my home twice. It was in 2014 when I left my home in Donetsk. And in 2022, I also lost my home in Kurakov. Now all I had left were my two cars. This one and the white one that burned down. I don't believe it. As long as Russian President Vladimir Putin is alive, there will be no peace agreements.
Local residents also reported being cut off from essential services, with disruptions in water supply, mobile communications, and even metro operations across parts of the city. Earlier that same day, on January 7th, Russian missile strikes were recorded in the city of Kryvyi Rih and across Dnipropetrovsk region, injuring at least 8 people and causing further destruction. Russia also launched coordinated attacks on 2 key ports in the southern city of Odesa, killing 1 person and injuring at least 5 more, according to local officials. In a related development, the United States seized an alleged Russian-flagged oil tanker with suspected links to Venezuela on January 7th, citing violations of sanctions. The seized vessel, called Bella 1, had reportedly been resisting capture since December 21st, according to CNN, prompting a complex international operation at sea. American officials stated that the Bella 1 was part of a so-called shadow fleet, a network of ships secretly transporting sanctioned oil in violation of US and international restrictions. This shadow fleet, according to Al Jazeera, was responsible for carrying crude oil for countries like Venezuela, Russia, and Iran, all under existing global sanctions. The United Kingdom supported the US Navy and Coast Guard in their operation to intercept and seize the tanker as it sailed through the Atlantic Ocean. In response, Russia condemned the move, insisting that no state has the right to use force against vessels registered under another sovereign nation's flag. Moscow also urged Washington to, as they put it, treat the Russian crew properly and permit their safe and early return to their homeland. Meanwhile, US authorities have said that the captured crew members could face prosecution and may be brought to the United States if further investigation deems it necessary.
The U.S. seized a tanker recently. Russia specifically asked the United States not to seize that tanker. Does this action risk a larger conflict with Russia?
I believe you're referring to the Bella 1 tanker. that was seized this morning. The Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, in coordination with the Department of War, did announce that seizure this morning for violations of U.S. sanctions. I've spoken about the enforcement of our sanctions policy at the podium prior to the new year, and this administration is going to fully enforce the sanction policy of the United States. The vessel this morning was seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to a warrant issued by a U.S. federal court after being tracked. And this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. And the United States of America, under this president, is not going to tolerate that. I would also just add the vessel had a judicial seizure order, and the crew, so that means the crew is now subject to prosecution for any applicable violation of federal law, and they will be brought to the United States for such prosecution if necessary.
The Bella 1 was falsely flagged. It was falsely flagged and subject to US counter-Iran sanctions. The vessel refused to comply with the US's exercise of its sanctions jurisdiction on the 20th of December, after which the US Coast Guard vessel Monroe pursued the ship across the Atlantic. This is a sanctioned, stateless vessel which carries a long history of nefarious activity and shares close links with both Iran and Russia. Following a request from the US, I authorised the use of UK bases and the deployment of Royal Navy and RAF assets to support the operation, including airborne surveillance and the RFA ship Tide Force. This was a US operation. No UK personnel took part in the boarding. The US's enforcement action was based upon counter-Iran sanctions aimed at stopping Iran from fueling instability through the profits of illegal oil sales. The UK supported this action to achieve three objectives. First, to enforce counter-Iran sanctions. Second, to tackle the global security threat posed by expanding shadowy maritime activity. And third, to reinforce British homeland defence and security in this era of rising threats.